Ciao, and welcome to Immersion Travel Italy, where we don't just visit Italy, we experience it. I'm Caterina Ferrara, travel author, blogger, and your host. This is episode 12 of 20 in our Regional Capitals of Italy series, where we're traveling north to south, tracing Italy region by region. We've covered the capital cities of Trento, Trieste, Milan, Genoa, Venice, Ancona, and others. Today, we've landed squarely in the middle of the boot in the capital of the region of Lazio, but also the capital of Italy itself since 1871. Rome is the most layered, complex, and symbolically powerful city in the country. It's also Italy's most visited city. Depending on how you count the arrivals, overnight stays, pilgrims, cruise passengers, and day trippers, Rome welcomed tens of millions of visitors in 2025, with more than 3 million registered overnight guests alone. And that number swells dramatically because of the Jubilee year. We were blessed to spend 2 weeks in and around Rome in December of 2020, and it was unlike any visit we had experienced before. The city was electric. Pilgrims everywhere, languages overlapping, lines forming, churches alive, not with just tourists, but with purpose, intention, and prayer. And layered into that moment was history being written in real time. A new pope, Pope Leo XIV, had been elected, and Rome was the center of the Catholic world in a way that is difficult to describe. One of my most favorite experiences during the stay became an episode called Firefighters, the Pope, and Caravaggio, Rome's December birthday gift, which I published on December 24th. The episode centers around December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, the Festa della Immacolata Concezione, a day that is both deeply Roman and deeply personal for me. Standing in Rome that day, watching the city move between ceremony and daily life, between faith and function, I was reminded of something essential about Rome. Every great city needs a good origin story, and Rome has one of the best. According to legend, the city was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, after a violent rupture with his twin brother Remus. The twins were said to have been the son of Mars, the god of war, abandoned as infants, and famously nursed by a she-wolf along the banks of the Tiber River. Whether you believe the story or not, the message is clear. Rome was born from struggle, conflict, and ambition. Romulus established the city on the Palatine Hill, drew its boundaries, and killed Remus for crossing them. The act is brutal, but the lesson is unmistakable. Excavations on the Palatine Hill reveal settlements dating to the mid-8th century BC, aligning uncannily well with Rome's traditional founding date. Myth and material history intersect here, which is something Rome does better than any other city. First, we need to talk about ancient Rome, not the Rome you see today with its tour groups and gelato shops. I mean the Rome that started it all. Rome wasn't always an empire. It wasn't always temples and triumphal arches. In the beginning, Rome was a cluster of huts on a hill, a strategic spot right near the ford of the Tiber River, but nothing grand. That river location, that was everything. Trade, movement, defense, and control. Rome sat at a crossroads. The Etruscans to the north, Greek-influenced territories to the south. The Etruscans taught Rome about architecture and engineering. The Greeks influenced art, philosophy, and urban planning. Rome didn't erase what it encountered. It absorbed it, adapted it, and made it Roman. And that adaptability became Rome's superpower. By the 6th century BC, kings ruled Rome. Some were Etruscan, and then in 509 BC, something radical happened. Rome abolished the monarchy. No more kings, power got divided, magistrates elected, and terms were limited. The Roman Republic wasn't democratic by our standards, but for its time it was revolutionary. In theory, anyway. In practice, Rome became obsessed with power, status, honor, legacy. Political life was brutal. Families rose and fell. Alliances shifted overnight. And violence wasn't a bug in the system. It was a feature. This messy, competitive system worked. Rome expanded through military conquest, through strategic alliances, and through law. And by the 2nd century BC, Rome controlled the Mediterranean world. Success, though, created problems. The Republic couldn't govern its empire. That tension kept building until finally it broke. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC, and that meant civil war. That was the Republic's death rattle. His assassination in 44 BC didn't save the old system. It just opened the door to something new. Augustus emerged as Rome's first emperor, but he didn't come out of nowhere. Augustus was born Gaius Octavius, the great-nephew of Julius Caesar. More importantly, Caesar adopted him as his son and heir in his will. The adoption made Octavian not a political successor, but legally Julius Caesar's son. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Octavian used that connection masterfully. He claimed Caesar's name, his legacy, and his loyalty from the people in the army. Over years of civil war and political maneuvering, he eliminated rivals and reshaped the Roman state without ever appearing to seize power outright. When he took the name Augustus, Rome didn't see a king, it saw continuity. And Augustus understood the power of appearances. He transformed Rome both physically and politically. He stabilized government, reorganized the military, and presented himself as a restorer rather than a ruler. And yes, he famously said, he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. But what this really means is Augustus didn't just rebuild Rome's building, he built Rome's identity. The Republic was gone and the empire had begun. Rome became the center of the empire, stretching from Britain to North Africa, Spain to the Middle East. And for centuries, all roads really did lead to Rome. During this time, Rome persecuted Christians, quietly at first, then violently. But that changed in 313 AD. Emperor Constantine the Great issued the Edict of Milan, and Christianity became legal, and everything shifted. By the end of the 4th century, Christianity was the official religion of the Roman Empire, and the Catholic churches had taken over the pagan temples. The Bishop of Rome, once just a religious leader among many bishops, became transformed into the Pope. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476, Rome was a major city. The emperors vanished for their own safety. Imperial administration fractured, and authority moved out of town. In Rome, one institution remained, and that was the Catholic Church. The papacy did not step into power because it wanted to. It stepped in because someone had to govern, to organize food distribution, to negotiate with invading forces, to maintain order in a city that could not be simply abandoned. The Pope and the Catholic Church became Rome's anchor. Barbarian kings came and went, but the papacy endured. Rome became the seat of Western Christianity. Pilgrims replaced legions, churches replaced imperial forums, and relics replaced banners. Over time, the Papal States emerged, a vast territory stretching across Italy, ruled directly by the Pope. Rome was no longer the capital of the empire, it was the capital of faith. By the 15th and 16th centuries, Rome reasserted itself as a global power. Not through armies, but through influence. The popes were patrons of the arts, and artists were propagandists. Architecture became theology in stone. During this time, we saw Michelangelo, Raphael, Bernini, Caravaggio. Rome was built deliberately, dramatically, and unapologetically. St. Peter's Basilica rose over the tomb of St. Peter. The Vatican became a city within a city, and Baroque Rome projected authority, spectacle, and certainty. In 1798, French forces under Napoleon Bonaparte, yes, Napoleon again, entered Rome. The Pope was arrested, the Papal States were dismantled. They returned but weakened. By the 19th century, Italy was changing. Risorgimento, the movement to unify Italy, gained momentum. Kings, duchies, papal territories stood in the way of a single Italian state, and Rome was the final obstacle. Italy unified in 1861 under King Victor Emmanuel II. But Rome wasn't its capital yet. The Pope still ruled Rome, and for nearly a decade, Florence was the capital. That changed in 1870. Italian troops entered Rome after French forces withdrew during the Franco-Prussian War. Rome was annexed, the Papal States ended, the Pope declared himself a prisoner in the Vatican. In 1871, Rome officially became the capital of Italy under the Kingdom of Italy under King Victor Emmanuel II. It was a monarchy, not a republic. Rome became the political capital of a unified nation, while the Pope remained inside the Vatican, refusing to recognize the Italian state. This standoff lasted until 1929, when the Lateran Pact was signed. The key point is that Italy was still a monarchy. The agreement was signed under King Victor Emmanuel III, but negotiated and executed by Benito Mussolini, Italy's fascist prime minister. The Lateran Pacts recognized Vatican City as an independent, sovereign state, established Catholicism's role in Italy, formally ended decades of hostility between Italy and the Pope. Italy would not become a republic until 1946, after World War II. It's younger than America. As far as World War I, Italy entered World War I on the Allied side in 1915. Rome was spared frontline destruction, but the war devastated the nation. Hundreds of thousands died, the economy collapsed, disillusionment spread. Victory felt hollow. The dissatisfaction paved the way for fascism. Mussolini was aligned with the Nazis, and under Mussolini, Italy entered into World War II aligned with Germany. In 1943, Mussolini fell and Germany occupied Rome. For 9 months, the city lived in fear. Jews were deported, resistance fighters operated in secret, and ordinary Romans risked their lives daily. Rome was liberated on June 4th of 1944 by Allied forces, led primarily by American troops along with British and other Allied units. Rome became the first Axis capital to be liberated during World War II. Unlike many European capitals, it survived relatively intact, spared widespread bombing because of its cultural and religious significance. In 1946, Italians voted to abolish the monarchy and create a parliamentary republic. That means that Italy has a president who's the head of state, a constitutional figure, and a prime minister who's the head of government and runs the country day to day. Since then, Rome has carried many identities all at once: the political capital of Italy, the spiritual center of Catholicism, an open-air architectural museum, and a living, breathing modern city. Today, Rome holds over 2,700 years of continuous history, layered street by street, church by church, ruin by ruin. Now, I've given you the very quick version here, the essentials, but Rome's history runs deep and wide. If you want the full story, Rome's complete history, and the festivals that still celebrate its ancient past, as well as the key towns across Lazio that shaped Rome's world, along with practical travel advice, everything is covered in my book called The Ultimate Festival and Travel Guide, Rome and Beyond. It's designed to help you understand not just Rome, but the wider region that sustained it, challenged it, and continues to give it meaning. You'll find it on my website at caterinaferrara.com under the books page. A note on walking Rome. One of the things I'm most intentional about in my books is that Rome is not a one route or one day type of visit city. Some travelers want ancient Rome on their first visit. When you come back, you might want Baroque churches. Others Jewish Rome, papal Rome, or hidden neighborhoods. That's why my guide includes multiple walking tours, each designed around a theme, whether it's art, or the level of interest, or the pace you want to set. Choose your Rome tour. But for this episode, I'm going to focus on a one-day walk that connects Rome's ancient power to its spiritual authority, because realistically, you can do this in a day, and it's more than enough. Now, as you know, I love having breakfast in Italy, and my favorite spot in Rome is called the Pasticceria Roscioli. It's near Campo dei Fiori. I love their pastries and their great coffee. It's crowded. You can stand at the bar elbow to elbow with Romans, or you can have a seat outside on the terrace along the walkway. This is old school Rome, and I always get a cornetto con crema and a maritozzo, a Roman specialty. Next, we'll talk the Colosseum. You can either walk there or take a taxi. If you're going to take a taxi, you're going to want to download the Free Now app, which is how you order taxis, or you can use Uber if you prefer. The Colosseum was inaugurated in AD 80 by the Emperor Titus and remains one of the most powerful architectural statements ever made. This was political messaging, free games for the people, imperial generosity on display, power made visible through spectacle. Gladiators, wild animals, executions, mock naval battles, all of it staged to remind Romans who controlled life, death, and order. I always recommend booking skip-the-line tickets or a guided entry here. Understanding why this building mattered transforms it from a ruin into a statement. It's also important to know that Rome has changed the way Colosseum tickets work to prevent tour companies and resellers from buying them up in bulk. Tickets are now nominative, which means your name will appear on the ticket and you are going to be asked to show ID when you enter. So plan ahead, book through official channels or trusted tour operators, and remember that all of the details will be in my blog with links for your tours. From the Colosseum, you step directly into the Forum, where ancient Rome reveals itself. Access to the Roman Forum is included in the standard Colosseum ticket, issued by the Colosseum Archaeological Park. That ticket simply covers the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and the Palatine Hill. The Roman Forum was the center of the Republic and the Empire. Here were the Senate meetings, political speeches, triumphal parades, trials, and funerals. You'll walk past the Temple of Saturn, once Rome's treasury. The Curia, where the Senate met, the Arch of Septimius Severus, celebrating military conquest. What looks like scattered stone is actually compressed power. Rome governed an empire from right here. Our next stop will be the Palatine Hill. This is where Romulus founded Rome, so the myth goes. But what's here is real. Emperors built their palaces on this exact spot for 400 years. From the ruins, you look down to the Forum. Then across to the Circus Maximus. The whole city spreads beneath you. You're standing where emperors stood, looking down where citizens looked up. Rome's power structure visible in geography. Standing here, the city makes sense. After we've spent the morning in ancient Rome, I'm going to recommend a lunch break. You're going to take a taxi or the metro or an Uber to Vatican City. Rome is a big city, and I really recommend not trying to walk at all if you can take transportation. Our lunch stop is Ristorante Arlu. It's one of my favorite spots in Rome. It's perfectly located near Piazza San Pietro. Arlu is warm, welcoming, and reliably excellent. And yes, they take reservations. You can get them through Google Maps. This matters in Rome because you don't want to be wasting your time trying to get in for lunch. This is where you try the Roman pastas. The three famous pastas are carbonara, amatriciana in a red sauce, and cacio e pepe. Roman cuisine is simple and uncompromising. When it's well done like it is here, you understand why nothing needs to be added. Oh, now I want pasta. We're going to spend our afternoon in Vatican City. First, St. Peter's Basilica. Entry here is free, but you go through security and there's often a line. Tour operators offer skip the line tours if you prefer. No matter how many times I enter St. Peter's, I'm always overwhelmed. It's the largest church in the world, built over the tomb of St. Peter, the first pope, the rock on which Christ said he would build his church. This is the center of the Catholic faith. Look to the right as you enter, and you'll see Michelangelo's Pietà behind glass. Michelangelo carved the Pietà when he was 24. Here, Mary holds the dead body of Christ across her lap. The marble looks soft, her face young and serene. It shouldn't be possible in stone. When you walk toward the center of the church, you'll see Bernini's Baldachin rising 30 meters high, a bronze canopy held by twisted columns. It marks the spot directly above St. Peter's tomb. Stand beneath it and look up at Michelangelo's dome. The scale makes you feel small in the best possible way. The basilica took 120 years to build. The greatest artists of the Renaissance and Baroque periods worked here: Bramante, Raphael, Michelangelo, Bernini. This is faith expressed in architecture. In my Ultimate Festival and Travel Guide Rome, I talk about what you need to do if you want to visit the tomb of St. Peter. It's an incredibly spiritual experience, and I highly recommend it. But stairs are required, and also is booking ahead, and I mean 6 months ahead. I climb the dome every time I visit. If you have the energy, climb it. It is well worth it. We climbed in December and hit perfect timing for sunset. The light was golden, the crowds were thin, and Rome spread out with a soft winter glow. This dome was designed by Michelangelo. The climb takes you first inside the structure, where you look down onto the basilica from behind the letters circling the base of the dome. Then you spiral up narrower and narrower stairs until you're outside. About halfway up, there's a cafe. You can stop for coffee, to catch your breath, and a bite if needed. Then the final push to the cupola's viewpoint gets steep. From the top, you can see the Vatican Gardens, the Papal Palace, St. Peter's Basilica, St. Peter's Square, and the Tiber River winding through the city, Rome stretching endlessly beyond. It is one of the best views in Rome. We bought our timed tickets in advance on the Vatican website. Another tour I will recommend is the After Hours Vatican Museums tour. I've done both the Vatican breakfast tour and the after hours tour. The breakfast tour starts in the Pinecone Courtyard, and they feed you breakfast, and then you get into the museums before the crowds arrive. It's good. But I prefer the after hours. You enter when the crowds are gone. The light is softer. The experience is more intimate. You move through the art galleries. Ancient Roman sculptures line the corridors. The gallery of maps stretches 120 meters with painted maps of every Italian region on the walls and gilded ceilings above. Then you arrive in the Raphael rooms, 4 chambers frescoed by Raphael and his students. The School of Athens shows the great philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, and finally, the end of the tour is in the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo's ceiling stretches above you, 9 scenes from Genesis. The creation of Adam at the center, God's finger nearly touching Adam's. It took him 4 years to paint, lying on his back on scaffolding. Later, he painted the Last Judgment on the altar wall. Christ is at the center, surrounded by saints and sinners, heaven and hell. But look at the side walls, too. They're painted decades before Michelangelo arrived. Florentine masters, including Botticelli, Ghirlandaio, Perugino, and Rosselli. One side shows scenes of the life of Moses, the other side, the life of Christ. Old Testament and New Testament in parallel. The chapel has held every papal conclave since 1492. The conclave is where they elect the Pope. I've been in the Sistine Chapel with thousands of visitors, guards constantly reminding people that this is a sacred place and to be quiet, bodies packed shoulder to shoulder, looking upward. It's overwhelming in the wrong way. In the evening with my small group, it was quiet, and I highly recommend this method if you can do it. You can look up at Michelangelo's ceiling without someone pushing past you, and you can enjoy it. Standing beneath Michelangelo's masterpiece in near silence is something daytime visits cannot offer. Many tour operators offer after-hours access. I'll include booking sites and the blog associated with this episode on my website. You know my podcast is about immersion. And you can see the Colosseum, toss a coin into the Trevi Fountain, and check boxes all day long, but I do have some experiences I would recommend. The first one is the Roscioli walking food tour. One of our favorite experiences in Rome this past December was the Roscioli walking food tour. You heard of Roscioli because I mentioned them as my favorite pasticceria. This is a family-run institution that has been feeding Romans for generations. Their approach to food is deeply traditional and uncompromising. This 3-hour walking tour is one of the best ways to understand Roman cuisine in context. You're not sitting in one place ordering dishes. You're moving through the city, tasting as you go, and learning what Roman food is. We sampled Roman cheeses, pizzas, cured meats, traditional pastas, and seasonal specialties, as well as wine. Roman cuisine is tied to class, history, and necessity. Dishes like carbonara and cacio e pepe weren't created for luxury. They were created for sustenance. This tour connects the flavors of centuries to daily life. I do want to say I don't get free tours or get paid by these companies. They're just my personal recommendations based on my experiences in Rome. Our next experience is a cooking class in Rome with Cesarine. We've used Cesarine multiple times, and Rome is one of the best places to do it. They connect you with local Roman cooks, not professional kitchens. You're welcomed into someone's home, often in a residential neighborhood, and you'll cook fresh pasta, traditional Roman sauces, seasonal antipasti, and usually a dessert. I like this because you cook together with other people on the road, other people moving around Rome. Another experience is Nero's Golden House. One of Rome's most fascinating and unexpected experiences is visiting the Domus Aurea, Emperor Nero's buried palace. After Nero's death, later emperors intentionally buried his extravagant residence to erase his legacy. Over time, buildings were constructed on top of it, including parts of the Colosseum complex. Today you enter it wearing a hard hat. You descend into darkness, and you're standing inside Imperial Rome, with its frescoes, vaulted ceilings, and immense scale. Many visits include virtual reality elements, allowing you to see how the palace once looked when it was covered in gold leaf, marble, and art. It's haunting and surreal, and it helps you understand ancient Rome. Also, I'll mention the Colosseum After Dark tour. This night tour is very different from a daytime visit. It's not hot if it's the summer. You've got smaller groups, controlled lighting, you're walking on the arena floor, and you're standing where the gladiators once. You begin to understand how carefully engineered this space was and how deliberately fear and awe were produced here. If you're already planning to see the Colosseum during the day, this is an upgrade worth making. One of the most extraordinary experiences we had in Rome was a guided tour of the Palazzo Colonna. It's not a museum in a traditional sense. It's still privately owned by the Colonna family, and it feels untouched. We did this tour in December, and we had the halls almost entirely to ourselves and a delightful guide who brought the family's history to life. The Colonna family has lived here for over 8 centuries. The palace reflects uninterrupted aristocratic power of Rome. Vast galleries, frescoed ceilings, mirrors, tapestries, art collected for inheritance. Walking through the gallery, you'll find a weight of continuity. This is Rome as it's lived, not a curated exhibit. Additional Rome-specific experiences to consider. The catacombs are an incredible place to visit outside of town. These are the original Catholic burial places from Roman times. A guided tour is required for the catacombs, and there are several different options for the catacombs. I'll include them in the blog notes. There's also a Jewish ghetto food tours, after-hours church access, especially for Caravaggio sites, and private Vatican Keymaster tours, limited but unforgettable. One of the things I emphasize in my ultimate festival and travel guide, Rome and Beyond, is that Rome isn't just a city of monuments. It's a city of celebrations. The guide has over 100 festivals from across Rome and the Lazio region. But for this episode, I want to talk about the 3 most important festivals of Rome itself, all very different and all reveal the city's identity. The first festival is Natale di Roma. This is when Rome celebrates its birthday on April 21st. Rome honors its founding in 753 with a giant party, including historical reenactments, Roman legion parades, gladiators and senators in costume, ceremonies around the Colosseum and Roman Forum. What makes Natale di Roma special is that it blends myth, archaeology, and civic pride. This is Rome acknowledging its age without apology. The second festival is the Feast of St. Peter and Paul on June 29th. Saints Peter and Paul are the patron saints of Rome, and their feast day is one of the most important religious celebrations throughout the year. The day includes solemn liturgies at St. Peter's Basilica and one of Rome's most beloved traditions, nighttime fireworks over Castel Sant'Angelo. The next feast is the Festa dei Noantri. It usually takes place from mid to late July, around July 16th. If Natale di Roma is about myth and the Feast of St. Peter and Paul is about universal faith, this festival is about neighborhood identity. This festival takes place in Trastevere, the part across the Tivoli or Tiber River, one of Rome's most historic and character-rich districts. Noantri means we others in Roman dialect. The phrase captures Trastevere's long-standing sense of independence from the rest of the city. The celebration honors the Madonna del Carmine and includes a procession, evening events and concerts, food stalls, and a festive, almost village-like atmosphere. If you want to experience Rome not as a visitor but as a participant, July is one of the best times to be here. Day trips. Tivoli. If you're going to take one classic trip from Rome, make it Tivoli. Tivoli is about 40 minutes from Rome by train, easy to reach, and easier to fall in love with. The town has been a retreat for powerful families since ancient times. That continuity is what makes it extraordinary. You have 2 UNESCO sites here that could not be more different. The first is Hadrian's Villa, built in the 2nd century AD by Emperor Hadrian. This wasn't a villa in the modern sense. It was a self-contained city. Palaces, libraries, baths, gardens, waterworks inspired by Greece and Egypt. Hadrian was Spanish-born, an architect, and a lover of Greek culture as well as a well-traveled man. He spent his last 10 years at this estate, recreating the world he'd seen on over 300 acres. Walking through Hadrian's villa feels more like entering the private mind of an emperor. It has a maritime theater where a small Roman house provided a retreat from the demands of court life. It had thermal baths. This was one of the biggest and most luxurious estates ever constructed in ancient Rome. After the empire fell, the villa was plundered. Marble burned for lime, art scavenged to scattered museums throughout Europe, but the remains are still breathtaking. The second spot is Villa d'Este. Built in the 16th century for the son of Lucrezia Borgia, it's famous for its cascading fountains, hydraulic engineering, and theatrical gardens. This is the Renaissance of Rome showing off. Hundreds of fountains, the Fountain of Neptune, the Oval Fountain, geometric paths, arched walkways, water features that still astound engineers today. Villa d'Este became a UNESCO site in 2001, and it deserves it. Give yourself 2 hours for Hadrian's Villa, another 2 hours for Villa d'Este, and more if you want to wonder. This is where emperors and cardinals came to escape, and you should too. The next area I want to talk about is the Castelli Romani. These are a collection of hill towns southeast of Rome. Volcanic lakes, vineyards, wooded hills, cooler air. This has long been Rome's escape. Getting here is easy. Train from Roma Termini is 30 to 45 minutes, depending on where you're visiting. Romans have been coming here since antiquity and still do every weekend. I visited the Castelli Romani towns multiple times over the years, and each visit reveals something new. I remember standing under the ancient fortified walls of Frascati on the Saturday before Easter. The town was alive with locals preparing for the holiday. Lines outside at the butcher shops, the baker, everyone picking up what they needed for their Easter feasts. It was authentic Italian life happening right in front of me. The first town I'll mention is Castel Gandolfo. My husband, son, and I came here for an audience with Pope Benedict. He spent July here escaping Rome's heat. Standing in the crowd inside the papal palace, looking up, felt intimate in a way Vatican audiences never do. The town overlooks Lake Albano and for centuries has served as the summer residence of the popes. When Rome got hot and crowded, the Pope escaped here. Pope Francis challenged that tradition by opening the Apostolic Palace and the Barberini Gardens to the public in 2016. You can now visit the papal apartments, see the Pope's bedroom, study private chapel, walk through 55 hectares of stunning Italian gardens. The town itself centers on Piazza della Libertà, restaurants and cafes with terraces offering panoramic views. Below the town lies Lake Albano, a volcanic crater filled with water, perfect for swimming in the summer and peaceful walks year-round. The most important festival in Castel Gandolfo is the Peach Festival, and I saw that Pope Leo attended this in 2025. Castel Gandolfo gives you a different perspective on papal history, quiet and more intimate than Vatican City. Frascati is famous for two things, wine and relaxation. This has been wine country for thousands of years. The Etruscans knew it, ancient Romans knew it, and the Vatican knew it. Frascati wine is called golden wine of the Romans. It's the Pope's wine. Not the highest quality wine in Italy, but that's not the point. The town sits on volcanic soil perfect for vineyards. You can visit family-run wineries that have been making wine for generations, tour Roman-era caves beneath the cellars, taste Frascati's superior DOC G wine while looking out at views of Rome in the distance. Villa Aldobrani dominates the town, built by a cardinal for his uncle Pope Clement VIII. The villa is still occupied by the family. You can visit the exquisite gardens. The real charm of Frascati is its wandering streets, stopping in cantinas, grabbing sandwiches in the main square. Romans escape here on Sundays for massive lunches and slow afternoons. The next town I want to mention is Aurea. I didn't know about porchetta before researching our trip to Aurea, and now I'm hooked. Porchetta has a protected geographical indication status. That means strict rules. The pork must come from a specific breed, deboned by hand, massaged with rosemary, black pepper, and garlic, roasted for 4 hours minimum. This result is crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, herb-infused throughout. It's simple, incredibly flavorful, and still served in huge portions. Carnivore level. Aurea has been making porchetta for thousands of years. There are informal osteria-type restaurants lining Via Borgo San Rocco. Of course, the town's most important festival is thanks to porchetta. The Sagra della Porchetta di Aurea traditionally takes place the first weekend in September, specifically the first Sunday of September. The festival began in 1950. Long communal tables, lively atmosphere. You share a table with strangers. That's part of the experience. The town itself has the stunning Palazzo Chigi, designed by Bernini, the Church of Santa Maria Assunta with its dome inspired by the Pantheon, and a massive viaduct connecting Aurea to the surrounding hills. Additional day trips from Rome. Two standout options. Florence is 90 minutes by high-speed train. It's possible to visit Florence as a day trip, although, of course, I'd recommend staying overnight. If you're building an itinerary that includes Florence, I covered in this series, Episode 9, Florence and Tuscany. That episode walks you through the city's history, essential sites, and immersive experiences. Orvieto. Getting there by train, about 1 hour. Orvieto was covered in the episode on Umbria and Assisi, including its Gothic cathedral and the Signorelli frescoes in the Chapel of San Brizio. As we close this episode on Rome and Lazio, I hope you can hear how different Rome feels when you step beyond the checklist. From its mythical founding with Romulus and Remus, through Republic, Empire, collapse, faith, monarchy, war, and Republic again, Rome has never stopped adapting. By walking through ancient Rome in the morning, then standing beneath the Dome of St. Peter in the afternoon, by tasting traditional Roman food the way Romans do. Lazio reflects that same balance. If going to Rome speaks to you, my ultimate festival and travel guide, Rome and Beyond, is designed to help you travel deeper. Rome is not a city you can ever finish. You have to return each time noticing something new, a detail missed, a layer you hadn't reached yet. Thank you for spending this time with me in Rome. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with someone who loves Italy. And join me next time as we continue the Regional Capitals of Italy series, moving further south and deeper into the heart of the country. Until then, travel slowly, travel deeply, and let the cities tell their stories.